Moana Exiles. This video is no nonsense, an honest documentation of every difference between Path of Exile 1 and its independent sequel, Path of Exile 2, that we know about after the conclusion of ExileCon 2023. Chapters for each difference are in the description, so you can skip around if you'd like. Let's delve right in. As it currently stands, crafting is entirely different in Path of Exile 2. Firstly, the crafting bench no longer exists. Unless there is a replacement that has not been detailed yet, this means you can no longer add an extra affix to your gear with ease, whether it's fire resistance, a bit of maximum life, or a few points of damage. Additionally, metacrafting might be gone with this removal too. This means all the metamods like suffixes cannot be changed that enable players to craft powerful items might no longer be accessible. This system was originally added to Path of Exile 1 in 1.2 Forsaken Masters and was seen as a good update by many. It's going extinct in PoE 2. Alongside the removal of the crafting bench, multiple crafting currency items have been changed or removed in PoE 2. Orbs of Alteration, the currency that allows you to re-roll the affixes of magic items, are gone completely. So are Orbs of Scouring, the currency that allows you to transform a rare or magic item into a normal item. Chaos Orbs have been changed. Now, they randomly remove one affix and add another. Essentially, they're re-rolling a single affix on a rare item, not all of them as they used to. As you've seen on your screen, every currency item is getting a facelift with the sequel. The art looks objectively incredible. Sticking to the currency subject, vendors will not trade you shards or full-on currency orbs in Path of Exile 2 when you sell them items. They will give you gold. This gold can be used to purchase items from various vendors, who are supposed to have well-stocked, actually decent items in their shops. Plus, you'll be able to use gold to gamble for items. Even unique items, sort of like PoE 1's Gwenin gambling system in Expedition. Flasks are getting a major shakeup in PoE 2. Normal monsters will no longer grant flask charges. Instead, only magic, rare, and unique mobs will. This drastically decreases the rate at which your flasks recharge. Plus, flasks will no longer fill entirely upon visiting a town. You must use a well in the town to refill them. Utility flasks are also catered to be reactionary, not enhancements. We don't exactly know which flasks will remain in PoE 2, but we do know Quicksilver flasks currently do not exist in the sequel to PoE 1. These are the flasks that increase your movement speed, new players. The core mechanics surrounding boss fights are also updated in PoE 2. Corpse rushing, or the act of respawning and rushing an already injured boss, is dead. If you die during a boss fight, you'll need to begin the fight from the beginning. In the same vein, logging out mid-fight will no longer save you from deadly strikes. When you log back in, you'll zone in to the moment you left. The boss will have no mercy on you. This kills the logout macro used by many hardcore PoE players. Unlike PoE 1, every single area in the game will have a meaningful boss encounter. Most are as in-depth as the present-day pinnacle bosses. This will lead to PoE 2 to launch with at least 100 distinct bosses in the campaign. This doesn't account for new endgame or pinnacle bosses. Bosses are also integral even to base PoE 2 character power progression. Certain optional bosses and core bosses will reward statistical, character-based passive bonuses upon killing them. This functions in a similar vein to the current Kill or Ally with the Bandits questline in PoE 1 Act 2, except it appears the bonuses are varied and far more frequent. For example, one boss might grant plus 5% fire resistance, while another might increase your maximum life by 50. Additionally, bosses will now be a good source of great items the first time you kill them. In the campaign, the first time you kill each boss, it will have a huge bonus to rarity, encouraging you not to skip them. Those aren't the only big boss changes. You are also able to stun and freeze bosses in PoE 2. Each boss has a custom stun animation. Many bosses and creatures for that matter can now be much larger too, as they've redone how hitboxes work. All hitboxes in PoE 1 were square, but in PoE 2 they can greatly customize that and allow for huge encounters. An example is this giant. Each of his legs is a hitbox. This means you can hit either of them and actually roll in between them too. As discovered in 2019, we no longer socket gems into our gear. We socket support gems into skill gems. A further difference from PoE 1 revealed at ExileCon 2023 is that we initially find uncut gems and then can choose what gem to transport those into, selecting from dozens of skills. Uncut gems are various tiers, which allow access to each different tier of skill gems. Firestorm might be a tier 2 skill and always begin as a 5th level gem, while Fireball might be a tier 1 skill and always begin at 1st level. PoE 2's new gem system will not be brought into PoE 1. The system shall remain distinctly different. Many skill gems are also hyperfixated on a specific situation or use, as you can have up to 9 6-linked skills in PoE 2. Touching on support gems briefly, many don't add raw damage anymore, and instead focus on adding quite specific mechanics to your skill gems. Pure damage adding supports do still exist, but they're fewer in number. Unlike PoE 1, weapon swapping will be important and consequential in the sequel. In PoE 2, you can tie specific clusters of your passive skill tree alongside specific skill gems to either of your weapons. For example, you can have a fire damage axe and a cold damage axe. When you use a certain slam skill tied to fire damage, you will pull out the attached fire damage axe and use a passive skill tree tied to dealing more fire damage. When you use a different slam skill tied to cold damage, you will automatically swap to the cold damage axe and the version of your skill tree tied to enhancing cold damage. This could allow characters to actually build out a weapon and skill specifically for bossing, accompanied by another set catered to clearing huge packs, with the ability to swap seamlessly between the two. The possibilities here are absolutely ridiculous. Layered on top of these gem and weapon differences is the fact that GGG is designing many skill gems to be tied to specific weapons, an amount far larger than in PoE 1. The most prominent example at ExileCon was the warrior demos using the two-handed mace. Many of the skills used were either tied explicitly to maces or, even more specifically, two-handed maces. This is intentional, meant to give each weapon an identity. Additionally, weapon implicits are going to be far wilder. For example, a mace implicit might destroy enemy corpses if they are killed with a critical hit, while a dagger might break an enemy's armor by a certain amount upon crit. This is far more varied than in PoE 1, where, for example, sword implicits are all tied to accuracy rating. In Path of Exile 2, there are 12 character classes. The only class missing from Path of Exile 1 is the Scion, which wouldn't mesh well with the new class identities GGG is going for with the sequel. The 6 new classes are the Warrior, the Sorceress, the Mercenary, the Monk, the Huntress, and the Druid, my personal favorite by far. Like the initial 6, each is tied to a specific attribute or attribute combination. Each of the matched classes start at specific points on the new massive passive skill tree, but they all have unique gem rewards and a set of 3 new Ascendancy classes attached. That's correct. Each of the 12 PoE 2 classes has their own batch of 3 Ascendancies, stacking up to a total of 36 total Ascendancy classes. All of these Ascendancy classes are different to the ones in Path of Exile 1. For example, the Ranger in PoE 2 can ascend as a Beastmaster, a Tactician, or a Survivalist, but in PoE 1, she can become a Deadeye, a Pathfinder, or a Raider. These set of new Ascendancies will greaten the divide between the predecessor and its sequel, as will the fact that you do not ascend via the Labyrinth. There is a new Ascension mechanic in PoE 2. Now, here's a barrage of miscellaneous differences between the two games. Passive skill tree masteries will not be in Path of Exile 2. They're a PoE 1 only feature for now. Portal scrolls now have about a 2.5 second casting animation during boss fights only. You can be knocked out of the animation. This is similar to how the portal gem in PoE 1 functions. Many League mechanics are unlocked by specific quests. For example, the revamped Delirium mechanic is unleashed upon interacting with a quest involving the Strange Voice. In PoE 1, most League mechanics just occur randomly at first. The world map is massive, sprawling, and far more detailed than Path of Exile 1's. Player characters, our exiles, speak much more and dynamically adjust to choices we make during our playthroughs. For example, if we zoom past NPCs without speaking, they'll remark to us and will retort. Less items drop from monsters, vendor shops are more incentivized. Perhaps this is a campaign-only concept, with loot becoming a bigger slice of the pie in the late game. Area maps are much larger, and they feel much larger due to the lower overall speed of movement. Fortunately, they do appear to be swarmed with monsters and boss fights. All item icons will have a consistency between them, unlike in PoE 1, wherein some icons might be cartoony or just enhanced pictures. Iconic unique items like Headhunter and Shavron's wrappings will be in PoE 2. Staves as a weapon will always include a mana-free spell skill attached as implicits, while quarterstaffs will fulfill the melee staff experience. Resistances no longer go below 0. The new resource, Spirit, is used for all skills that usually dealt with mana reservation. There will be new support for it on the passive skill tree and items. Scepters are extremely minion and aura-focused weapons now. Additionally, traps and mines are now actual weapons, not skill gems. Okay, Exiles, that was a long list of differences. Overall, PoE 1 and PoE 2 are both ARPGs set in the world of Rayclast, developed by Grinding Gear Games. They do appear to have fundamental differences, especially when it comes to maintaining resources, but I'm confident both will be excellent games to play, and I plan on continuing to play and cover both of them as long as I'm having fun. That's what matters, the fun. Next up in the ExileCon aftermath is everything we do not know about Path of Exile 2, which is a lot. I'd like to say it's surprising there's still a ton up in the air, but to be honest, it's not surprising at all. We're at least 1.5 years out from its release. We have quite the long while to go. Shout out to everyone directly supporting the channel via Patreon or a YouTube membership. Also, big shout out to the Discord server that has quite a few of us exiles on it. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you would appreciate seeing more content like it, subscribe now. Additionally, check out these juicy videos on your screen. Every minute you watch helps the channel grow. I've also started live streaming on Twitch, so if you'd like to give those a watch, make sure to visit my stream on twitch.tv/talkativetry. To everyone who watched until this ultimate moment, Tala Moana.